the Broncos are moving on from the last member of that Super Bowl 50 team. So we're going to break down the release of Brandon McManus. We'll look at some early replacement options and just kind of talk about the move altogether because it's a bit bittersweet. I think more bitter than sweet, although it kind of depends on what lens you are looking through. Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown. Matthew Peterson here. Still not 100% for my wisdom teeth removal, so sorry if it's a bit sluggish, if not lack of enthusiasm. But Adam Schefter, the first one to report a surprise. Is it a surprise? Maybe a bit. The Broncos informed kicker Brandon McManus, the last remaining member of Denver's last Super Bowl team, and the man who has kicked for the team since 2014, that they are releasing him per sources. There's now an added veteran kicker for kicker-needy teams. So I included Brandon McManus the last time I did surprise cut candidates, if I remember correctly, or 2 times ago, and I got a lot of heat in the comment section. So for all of you that said I was crazy for even suggesting the idea, well, here it is. But Brandon McManus himself also reporting the news, which is always a bit awkward. The Broncos have informed me I've been released. More to come in the following day. So off-the-cuff sort of reaction here. It's a bit of a bummer because Brandon McManus, of course, has been a staple of this team for nearly a decade at this point, and he's had a lot of great moments. He's got an awesome nickname in McMoney, but at the same time, I'd be lying if I said McManus has been rock solid the last couple of years, so I can see why Denver ultimately decided to move a different direction. We're going to talk about Sean Payton just overhaul the entire special teams unit. But let's get some more background on McManus. He has played for the team since 2014 up until now. He's only missed 2 games in his entire career, which I know kickers are usually Iron Men anyway, but 2 games in that long of a stretch is really impressive. Now, last season, his 77.8 field goal percentage was the lowest of his career since 2017. So it kind of felt like the timing might be right for Denver to move on with some cap savings in hand, and you weren't all that great of a kicker last year, which some kicks were his fault, no doubt about it, but trotting him out for a 93-yarder in week 1, not really Brandon McManus' fault. Now, in 2022, he hit 76.9% of his field goals from under 40 yards. That's a really low percentage. Like, you have to be money from under 40 yards, right? There are just no exceptions. You've got to be kicking, I would think, between 83 to 90%-ish. I don't know why I picked 83, but in the mid to high 80s for under 40 yards. And 76, that's a bad sign for a kicker that isn't old necessarily, but getting up in the age column, and there were some cap savings to be had. So before we break down this move a little bit more, we go live here on the channel every so often, and we've got the green light to go today at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, 4 o'clock Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. So be sure to tune in. If you have never tuned into a live Broncos Breakdown, it's a ton of fun. It's an interactive way for me to talk to you guys here, so make sure to tune in. Plus, we do a live mailbag, and we're going to talk about this move and just the Nuggets and Denver sports in general, along with some roster projections, I think. So, or maybe some Brandon McManus replacements, actually, which we'll look at in just a moment. But make sure to tune in 3 o'clock Mountain Time. Now, the cap savings, Denver saves $2.5 million, but they also incur a $2.5 million dead cap hit. So I don't think this is a move to spark some cap space, right? I don't think Denver decided we want $2.5 million free right now. I think this was that factors in a little bit because $2.5 million isn't nothing, but also we're not going to pay someone $2.5 million, or we're not going to pay someone what he was making $3-4 million or whatever to kick under 80% field goal percentage-wise. Now, Brandon McManus, here are his career stats on the left, and on the right, you can see what he did last season and the drop-off, right? A career 81.9 field goal percentage kicker, last year 77.8. He was actually pretty good from 50-plus, 61.5 last season. Extra point percentage took a bit of a dip, but also now he's kicking from the 33, 35, whatever it is, compared to the start of his career when it was all chip shots. So in his career, he's been a rock-solid kicker. He's definitely been one of my favorite players of this team, but I don't think he is an absolute icon that you just could not move on from no matter what. But with all that being said, there are a lot of great moments in Brandon McManus' era as the Broncos kicker since 2014. So let's show the guy some love. Type 8 his jersey number down in the comment section below. It's a bittersweet moment, I think, right? Mostly bitter because McManus has been the only consistent thing about this team since 2015. That is at least being on the roster. But the sweetness might be it was kind of time to move on and go a different direction. It seemed like he was starting to go down a bad path in terms of his future kicking for Denver. Now, I do have a bit of a take when it comes to this, and that is Sean Payton. It's clear that he is calling the shots now. I think this was a Sean Payton move more so than a George Payton move. So does Sean Payton believe that Brandon McManus is cooked and he's just not going to be a good kicker? And the last thing you want to do is hold on for a kicker a year too long, then move on from a guy a year too early, right? Is that what's going on here? Or does Sean Payton just want a brand new slate? Does Sean Payton want a completely new roster for the Sean Payton era, and he wants to move on from the old 2015 team, and this was the last piece hanging around, and he wants his guys in here? I think it's a bit egotistical for Sean Payton to move on from Brandon McManus solely because, hey, I don't want any of the old regime guys here anymore. I want to get my guys in. We're moving on from you because of that. You don't move on from good players because of your ego. What kind of coincided for Sean Payton is that Brandon McManus was not that good of a player last season statistically. Now, this has not been the only move in the special teams room, right? You can see there's been a long list of special teams changes, right? Kicker, we don't know who the new one is, but it ain't going to be Brandon McManus. Riley Dixon came over to replace Corliss Waitman after one season. You got a new long snapper. You got a new special teams coordinator. You got an assistant special teams coordinator, Ben Kotwika and Mike Westhoff. So there have been a lot of changes. And honestly, special teams has been such a disaster the last couple of years. You don't need stats to back it up. Like, I can tell you the numbers. Denver was like bottom 5 in kicking last season. Return abilities, no impact whatsoever, no spark, no catalyst from that whatsoever. But special teams, in my opinion, has always been an eye test department. Like offense and defense, there are plenty of stats and analytics to back up your points. But special teams, you just kind of know it when you see it. In the last couple of years, I have not seen good special teams from Denver. So I don't blame Sean Payton coming in here going, we are gutting the special teams room. And I'm sorry, Brandon McManus. I know you've been this team's kicker for a long time, but you weren't that good last season, and it's time to just start fresh altogether, top to bottom in the special teams department. So we're going to go a different direction, save a little bit of money in the process, but ultimately last season did not warrant a whole lot of reasoning for you to stick around for another season. Now, before we get to some early replacement options, there is a great deal going on at Fanatics. Check it out, chatsports.com/DEN combo. You can get not one, but 2 shirts on sale when you use our link. It's in the comments and the description of today's video. Excuse me. The hard truth is, to kind of wrap up McManus moving on, is McMoney has not been money as of late. He hasn't been a disaster the last couple of seasons. Last year was not spectacular, especially with under 40 yards. But ultimately, I think this is a combination of a little bit of cap savings, but I don't think you move on from a good player just to save $2.5 million. Although they kind of did that with Sam Martin last year. But I think it's more so we're gutting special teams, and we're not leaving any piece behind. And you weren't that good last season, so you're not giving us a good reason to hold on to you. Plus, like I said, you weren't that good last season. So gutting special teams, and it just also happening to coincide with you had a down season last year, which gives us more reason to just completely start from the ground up for the new special teams unit in Denver. Now, when it comes to some free agent kickers out there, I know you've all been wondering. Let's start with Brett Maher. Brett Maher last year was the Cowboys kicker who infamously missed 4 extra points in the playoff game against the Bucs. He got the yips. He was actually really good in the regular season. He just got the yips in the postseason. Robbie Gould, it sounds like he's either going to be a Chicago Bear or he's going to retire. Like, he was the Bears kicker for a long, long time, 49ers kicker the last couple of seasons. I don't think he's going to come to Denver, but maybe money talks and that persuades him. Mason Crosby, of course, the Packers kicker forever. I didn't even know he was still a free agent at this point. I assumed Green Bay had re-signed him. That's an option. Ryan Succop, I don't dislike this option. He's kind of bounced around a little bit, but this could be an intriguing name. And then there's Fat Randy Bullock. You got to go with Fat Randy, right? Anyone that's got that nickname, I'm all about it. So you go from McMoney to Fat Randy. Talk about all-time kicker nicknames in Denver. So who do you want the Broncos to sign? Is it one of those 5 guys? Is it someone else? Let me know down in the comment section below who you would like to see kicking for Denver in 2023. That's going to do it for us on today's show, but we're not going to be going far for very long. Make sure you tune in for our live show today, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Hopefully, my mouth and my jaw are kind of closer to 100%. The wisdom teeth have not been very kind to me. It's been a tough last couple of days, but hopefully we'll be 100% soon. But make sure to tune in for our live show, 3 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern today. Until then, we'll see you guys later.